Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and just a quick note before we jump in. Today's source material comes directly from a SpeakDuo lesson. So if you want to practice what we talk about, you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls.
Right.
It's essentially to become more confident with their English speaking abilities. But anyway, let's get straight into it.
Yeah, let's do it. So our mission today is for advanced English learners. We're looking to master 15 high-level idioms and expressions from the Berkeley Square '06 collection.
Which is a great collection, honestly.
It really is. The goal here is to move way beyond textbook English. We want to understand the nuanced differences you need for the workplace, or like if you're doing an IELTS speaking part 2 response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's dive into the first section, looking at how advanced English speakers describe sudden, unavoidable challenges at work.
The fun stuff.
Right, the stuff that makes you panic.
Yeah.
So our first phrase is, come out of nowhere. I mean, to appear suddenly or unexpectedly.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how is this different from just saying you were surprised? I mean, if I get a pop quiz in school, I'm surprised, right?
Well, yeah, but catching someone off guard focuses on the reaction, your internal shock.
Okay.
Whereas coming out of nowhere, it focuses entirely on the origin of the event. Like the landscape was clear and then bam.
So it's like an empty radar and suddenly there's a huge blip?
Exactly.
So for an IELTS Part 2 example, if the prompt is, describe a time you were surprised, you could say, a travel invitation from an old classmate came out of nowhere.
That's a perfect use.
Or, like professional, you could say, an unsolicited job offer came out of nowhere, disrupting my academic plans.
Right. It paints a really vivid picture of the event itself, not just your feelings about it. And, when something like that happens, you might need our second phrase, which is can't be helped.
Right. Can't be helped.
Yeah. Describing an unfortunate situation that just, cannot be avoided.
I feel like people usually just say, it's out of my hands.
Yeah.
Are those, interchangeable?
Not quite. I mean, they're similar, but out of my hands it's very defensive.
Oh, like you're putting your hands up in surrender.
Yeah. It removes blame, but can't be helped has a tone of sort of philosophical acceptance. It's an inconvenience, but you're accepting it.
So you wouldn't tell your boss, my canceled flight is out of my hands. Because that's
combative, exactly.
You'd say my flight was canceled due to weather, so it couldn't be helped, or the train was late, causing us to miss the meeting, but it can't be helped.
Right. It just sounds so much more composed. Which brings us to the third phrase, blow over. This means to pass by or end without serious, lasting harm.
Okay, let's unpack this, because why don't we just say a problem finished? Like, why use blow over?
Well, think about the imagery. Blow over implies a storm.
Oh.
So it's a high-intensity situation that eventually dissipates, something that just concludes naturally, fades away. But a storm blows over.
So you'd use it for a loud, messy situation. Like discussing an argument at work, you'd say, we were quite anxious about the department conflict, but luckily it blew over after the weekend without lasting friction.
Perfect. You're acknowledging the intensity, but confirming there's no structural damage.
Makes sense.
And if you're in the middle of that storm, you need phrase 4. Acquit yourself, which means to behave or perform remarkably well in a difficult situation.
What's fascinating here is that acquit is a legal term.
Exactly. It originates in the courtroom, but we use it figuratively in high-stakes environments.
So it's more than just surviving.
Oh, definitely. It's a huge step above surviving. It means you maintained your composure and your honor. You were on trial, and you won.
Okay, so a manager might say, during the emergency live presentation, she acquitted herself with calm and clear explanations.
Right. It's a massive compliment.
Wow, okay. So moving on. Once the crisis blows over, you have to manage the people involved, right? Social dynamics and ethics.
The really tricky part of the workplace.
Yeah, and that brings us to phrase 5, win someone over. To persuade someone to completely support or like you.
The nuance here is comparing it to convincing someone.
Okay, how so?
Well, convincing appeals to logic. You show them data, they agree. But winning someone over, that appeals to their emotions and their loyalties.
So if I'm preparing a detailed, data-driven presentation, I want to win over skeptical stakeholders. I don't just want them to agree. I want them on my side.
Exactly. Or a student showing extra effort to win over a strict teacher. It's about relationship building.
Right. But what if you have to deal with someone who is just completely wrong? That's phrase 6, very much mistaken,
Yeah.
meaning completely wrong about a fact or an assumption.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, isn't this just a polite way of saying you're wrong?
It sounds polite, but it's actually much more formal and forceful. Yeah. Being slightly off is polite. Saying someone is very much mistaken challenges a confident belief. It's almost a warning.
Oh, wow. So responding to a colleague, you'd say, if you assume our department will compromise on quality just to meet the deadline, you were very much mistaken.
It has a bite to it, right?
It really does. Or I guess you could use it on yourself, like, I thought he was mean, but I was very much mistaken.
Yeah, misjudging a coworker's kindness. Now, sometimes it's better to say nothing at all. That's phrase 7. Keep your mouth shut. Meaning, to remain silent or deliberately not reveal a secret.
So how is this different from just keeping a secret?
Keeping a secret is passive. You just have the information.
Okay.
But keeping your mouth shut is active. It involves self-restraint. You want to say something, but you have to force yourself not to avoid awkwardness.
Or to avoid spoiling a surprise, like knowing about restructuring plans and holding your tongue until management issues the official notice.
Exactly.
Or staying out of an argument between two friends. You just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, it's a strategic choice. And speaking of strategy, phrase 8 is humor someone. To agree with someone just to keep them happy or calm.
I use this all the time. But it's fundamentally different from actually agreeing, isn't it?
Oh, completely.
Because you don't actually agree, you're just managing their mood.
You're sacrificing your own right to be correct just to keep the peace.
Like listening to a neighbor's really long, boring story when you're busy,
Yeah.
you just humor them.
Yep.
Or nodding along during a tense meeting to keep the peace, even though you think their idea is terrible.
Exactly, it's social survival. But sometimes you can't just nod along, you have to use phrase 9, do the right thing. To act morally or ethically, even when it's incredibly difficult.
So how does this differ from just following the rules?
Well, following the rules is easy. Doing the right thing is often unpopular. It might involve personal sacrifice.
So it's about a moral compass, not a handbook.
Precise.
Like reporting an internal safety violation for the good of the team, even if it makes everyone mad at you. Or admitting a mistake at work to improve trust.
Yeah, those are perfect examples. And after you do all that heavy lifting, you need our next section, retreat, care, and life events.
Right, because you're exhausted.
Absolutely. Which brings us to phrase 10, hideout. To go somewhere secretly to escape people or responsibilities.
So how is this different from just taking a break?
Taking a break is scheduled, it's normal. Hiding out is active evasion. You are dodging your busy schedule.
Like after an exhausting product launch week, I hid out at a countryside cottage for 3 days to disconnect.
Exactly. You don't want anyone to find you. And while you're hiding out, you might take phrase 11, a quiet stroll. A slow, relaxed walk for pleasure or exercise.
So definitely not a brisk walk.
No, a brisk walk is cardio. A stroll is about clearing the head.
That's a great IELTS Part 2 phrase. I enjoyed a quiet stroll by the river on Sunday morning.
It sets a really nice scene, and maybe on that stroll you have phrase 12, harmless fun, an enjoyable activity causing no trouble.
The word harmless is key there, right? It's the opposite of thrill-seeking.
Right, it emphasizes innocence and safety.
So playing board games or painting with friends, just harmless fun.
Exactly. Now, moving to how we care for others, phrase 13 is check up on. To look at someone or something to ensure safety.
But I wouldn't check up on, like, a computer system, right? I'd monitor it.
Exactly. Monitoring is clinical. Checking up on someone has an inherently empathetic, caring element to it.
So calling elderly parents or a sick neighbor to make sure they have what they need, you're checking up on them.
You've got it. And sometimes care comes anonymously. Phrase 14. A secret admirer. Someone who likes another without revealing their identity.
This is different from an anonymous donor, right?
Yeah, an anonymous donor gives charity. An admirer implies affection, usually romantic intent.
Like receiving mysterious flowers at work or nice notes in your locker at school.
Exactly. And finally, phrase 15 deals with a more somber life event. Pass away. A polite, respectful way to say someone died.
It's a euphemism.
Yes, it's softer and much more empathetic than the literal alternative.
So if you need bereavement, leave because your grandfather passed away. Using this phrase respectfully informs your boss without being too blunt.
It's essential for handling sensitive situations professionally.
Okay, well, that's all 15 phrases. So now it is time for the superbly said SpeakDuo quiz.
Let's see how well everyone absorbed these nuances.
Yeah, so I'm going to fire off 8 questions to test your grasp of the core phrases we just discussed. I will read option A, option B, and option C, and I'll repeat the target phrase so you know what you're listening for.
Sounds good.
Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer. All right, question 1. Which sentence uses the idiomatic phrase blow over correctly based on context? Option A. The wind was strong enough to blow over the temporary construction barricades by the main entrance. Option B. The deeply frustrated young retail clerk aggressively managed to completely drop a white line. Option C. We were quite anxious about the department conflict, but luckily it blew over after the weekend without any lasting friction. Listen for blow over. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option C. It correctly uses blow over to describe a conflict ending without lasting harm, rather than the literal wind.
Awesome. Question 2. Select the context where the phrase come out of nowhere is most appropriately used figuratively. Option A. The unsolicited job offer came out of nowhere, completely disrupting my planned academic path for the upcoming semester. Option B. The professional traveler was instructed to come out of nowhere to the meeting point by the train station. Option C. The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly buy some large systems. Remember, we are looking for come out of nowhere. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
That would be option A. It effectively describes a sudden, unexpected event that disrupts plans. Option B is just a very weird literal translation.
Right. Okay. Question 3. In which situation does someone accurately utilize the advanced phrase hide out contextually? Option A. The professional hunting guide was instructed to hide out in the camouflage shelter to observe local wildlife. Option B. After the exhausting product launch week, I decided to hide out at my countryside cottage for 3 days to disconnect completely. Option C. The completely terrified young wilderness traveler unexpectedly noticed an exceptionally massive, heavy tool chest. The phrase is hide out. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is option B. It perfectly captures the essence of secretly escaping responsibilities to recharge, not just physically crouching in a shelter.
Nice. Moving to question 4. Which response best demonstrates the advanced phrase win someone over figuratively? Option A. I knew the stakeholders were skeptical of our project, so I prepared a detailed, data-driven presentation to win them over. Option B. The professional sports tournament champion was instructed to win someone over the trophy at the awards ceremony. Option C. The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly catch that white balance. Look for win someone over. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
It's option A. It perfectly shows persuading skeptical people to support your ideas, appealing to their emotions and logic.
Exactly. Question 5. How would a professional accurately use the phrase acquit yourself contextually? Option A. The legal courtroom defense clerk was instructed to acquit yourself of the formal charges against the client. Option B. The completely confused amateur theater group unexpectedly decided to proudly paint a clean frame. Option C. Given the immense pressure of the live presentation, you managed to acquit yourself quite well, maintaining perfect composure throughout. Again, acquit yourself. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option C. It accurately describes performing remarkably well under intense pressure. Option A mixes up the literal legal usage in a really clunky way.
Yeah, that one was tricky. Okay, question 6. Which scenario perfectly illustrates the meaning of the phrase keep your mouth shut contextually? Option A. The professional diving medical specialist was instructed to keep your mouth shut while performing the underwater respiratory test. Option B. Even though I knew about the restructuring plans, I had to keep my mouth shut until management issued the official notice. Option C. The incredibly clumsy hotel maintenance worker accidentally managed to completely drop that red tray. We're looking for keep your mouth shut. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
Option B is the right one. It correctly uses the phrase to mean deliberately not revealing a known secret, not just physically closing your lips like in option A.
Right. Question 7. Which sentence accurately utilizes the advanced phrase do the right thing contextually? Option A. Choosing to report the internal safety violation was not an easy choice, but I knew I had to do the right thing for the team. Option B. The professional carpentry workshop instructor was instructed to do the right thing when using the manual handsaw. Option C. The deeply confused young kitchen assistant accidentally managed to quickly slice a fresh piece of thing. Listen for do the right thing. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is option A. It demonstrates making a difficult but morally sound choice rather than just doing a physical task correctly.
Okay, last one. Question 8. Which of the following statements correctly uses very much mistaken, figuratively? Option A. The professional map-reading navigation specialist was instructed to avoid being very much mistaken about the mountain trail path. Option B. If you assume that our department will compromise on quality just to meet the deadline, you're very much mistaken. Option C. The completely confused amateur artist unexpectedly managed to beautifully paint a giant yellow mistaken. Final phrase is very much mistaken. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct choice is option B. It strongly and correctly challenges a false assumption with that formal bite we talked about.
And that's a wrap on the quiz. Huge congratulations to you if you played along. You've just added 15 highly nuanced phrases to your vocabulary toolkit.
It's fantastic progress. And, before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Ooh, go for it.
Idioms often reveal a culture's underlying values. If you notice, so many English workplace idioms like acquit yourself or blow over or even win someone over, they rely heavily on metaphors of legal battles, conquests, and violent weather.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they really do.
Right. So what do the idioms in your native language reveal about how your culture views work and conflict? It's really fascinating to think about.
That is such an interesting point to consider. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive, and remember to keep practicing these phrases.
Keep up the great work, and goodbye for now.